Well, Victor Victrola the 12th. Finally operational again. We had some issues to clear up with the motor. And little things with the case, loose screws. The lid stay was located in the wrong spot on the lid. They relocated it because the holes had become elongated and they didn't know how to fix that. But that's taken care of now. The motor, wow. It was kind of a thing 30, 40 years ago. A lot of people collected Victrolas but didn't necessarily play them. So a machine would have to look good but not really be that functional. Oh yeah, you wanted the turntable to spin, all of that, but you see things like solid plastic isolator gaskets and things like that on reproducers because no one really wanted to play the records that much. I suspect this machine falls into that category. The motor was together and it would spin the turntable, a testament to how well engineered Victor motors were. It was missing a critical screw on the bridge that holds the triple spring cans in place, so it was sagging, not quite making the best power that way. It was a ball bearing missing behind one of the shafts. All of the felt washers between the motor board and the motor were missing, so it wasn't aligned properly. What else? Speed control wasn't set. The governor wasn't adjusted. I mean, stuff like that. But that's all cleared up now. The Victor Victrola 12 is an extremely rare Victrola. The Victor company tended to make the models they made in the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands even. The company was really prolific with their models and extremely popular with the general population. Everybody wanted a Victrola. Victrola name was synonymous with quality, longevity, the best sound. They had the best patents. So to find a model they made that they only made about 4,700 and change, something like that, for about a year, although there were a few scattered amongst the years after, I think as late as 1915 or 1914, but only in like ones and twos and threes and stuff like that, very small numbers. But most of them were made in 1909 and 1910, or in mahogany, although I am told there were some done in oak. And it was the companion, the tabletop companion to the VTLA, and the very first Victrola tabletop. This is it, the very first one. It is somewhat larger than a Victrola the 9th, somewhat higher than that too. It has a triple spring motor, it has gold-plated furniture, all of the hallmarks of Victor's top-end machines, because it was the companion to the VTLA, as I said. Now the VTLA, the Victrola the 16th, the big floor model, sold for $200, which was a huge amount of money in 1906 to 1910. This machine here, the 12th, sold for about, what did I say, $125. Now that today, that's barely enough to cover a single shopping trip to the grocery store. But in 1909, that was like $3,700 or something like that. I haven't done the math, but it was in that neighborhood. A lot of money. A lot of money. I mean, yearly salaries didn't generally touch that from most families in 1909. So this was a major investment for whoever bought it. They were marketed to the wealthy, obviously, at that price. But because they were, only $75 difference from the big fancy floor models, not many of these tabletops sold. I mean, 4,700, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's like a couple of weeks production for the Victor plant at that time. Nothing at all. They have some innovative features. Mostly, I mean, people at the time complained about the small horn size. You can see that the horn doors are smaller than any you're going to find at any other Victrola, but the sound is still good. And it is a big horn hiding in there. But more importantly, it's an isolated horn. That means the horn is isolated from the motor. I showed this in a previous video. How they did it. They enclose the horn entirely from the tone arm all the way to the front grille, so that noises that come out of the motors, and motors of this era, they're noisy for Victor. They are noisy motors, not nearly as smooth and refined as you would find, by the 1920s. So you wanted to keep that noise away from the horn, and isolating the horn like they did, that accomplished it. So, you know, they did have some innovative, and that, of course, it was a Victrola, internal horns, and that was innovative, too, for its time. You know, exhibition reproducer was used on everything Victor had in this era, and it was a perfectly good reproducer for the records of that time. And I don't believe these cabinets were made by Victor. They might have been made by Pooley. I'm not sure. Got to do a little more homework on that one. Because this was a time when Victor was gradually transitioning from outside suppliers to their own manufacturing capability, expanding the Camden plant and all of that. So this could have been either way. Now this machine spent, I guess all of its life in Florida, southern Florida, and came through it surprisingly well. You know, the heat and humidity, most of its life was probably spent without the benefit of air conditioning, because that was not really common in homes until the 1960s and 70s, really, for private residences. And there is some slight warpage here and there. You can see a little gap there in the joint. Nothing major down there. Mahogany will do that. But the cabinet is rock solid. And it still has the patent sticker underneath it with the 1909 date on it, because this machine was made in 2 styles in the 12 or so months that it was being made between the 2 years. This is the early style. Serial number 2255, I believe it is. 1909 on the patent date. And this would have been made in 1909. And the later ones were fancied up a little. They gussied them up. They put some fancy trim over here, and just kind of jazzed it up a bit to try to boost sales. Didn't really work. It still couldn't compete with its larger big brother there, the 16. But, hey, you know, they were experimenting with what would work. And eventually, I guess this model would sort of morph into the Victrola, the knife, because that would be, you know, the larger tabletop model to follow this eventually. And it would not be as innovative as this, because the early Victor the Ninths did not have an isolated horn. The motor sat right in the middle of the horn box, which didn't matter that much by then. The motors had a little bit more refinement, but still, if you listen for it, you can hear the clicks and whirs of the motor over the music, especially if it's an older record or a lower tone record, doesn't have a lot of volume. Well, let's see what we got under the lid. The coffin lid. I mean, this is really a coffin lid. They toned it down later on, but look at the outline of that. You see gold plate. Now, the reproducer on here is my test exhibition, because after what I found in the motor, I decided, even though the gold-plated reproducer does look like it's been rebuilt, I'm going to take it apart and make sure it was done right, because you know, it might have just been done for looks, and that's not going to fly with me. So now the record I have on here is almost period correct. It's a Victor Monarch, and if you look carefully, see if I can pick this up on camera. Somebody, and it looks like it probably was not done by an owner, but that's the title right there. You see it scratched there? That's the title and the name of the band leader, Sousa. And right there, can I pick it up? It is 1102. January 1st, 1902. Someone has actually scratched a date in there. I'm not sure if that... Oh, I'm sorry. No, January 7th, 1902. And Patrol, Rose, Thistle, and Shamrock by Sousa's band, you know, on March. And we'll see how it plays. The record's got some wear on it, obviously. It's, you know, the machine is 111 years old. The record is almost 120, you know, 118. It's getting old. These had the bullet brake, as all of these older machines do. That's a holdover from the big horn machines. The old style speed control, which is now properly set. Cast iron, yielding flywheel. See that? It's yielding. That means it moves. You can wobble it a little bit. It's secured by a screw. It doesn't just lift off. You have to take the screw off to get it. But it has yield, so if something drops on it, it doesn't break the record, and it'll yield a little bit. And these all had the female crank. Gold-plated, of course. And let's hear how she sounds. We got the sound doors open. Spin it up. Spin it up to speed, and this record is slightly damaged on the edge, so I have to do this very carefully. No auto stop on these. You have to be on your toes and wait for the end of the record. I don't want that needle to skip out of the groove and go across that label. That would be bad. And there you go. Let's try something a little bit later. This would be from the 20s. This is the flip side to the Japanese Sandman by the Paul Whitman Orchestra from the I believe 1920, I was told this was. Whispering. Nice, be careful, little swap here. One-handed. One thing about these records, these older Monarch records, they are noticeably thicker than the later 78s. Now the Monarch label, I was told, was used between 1901 and 1903 by Victor. It's actually a little tight. And we got to change the needle. We're going to use a loud tone needle. There we go. And we'll let her spin up. Just imagine the records this machine has played in 111 years. go. Now, there were complaints I've read about, mostly online, about volume, small horn, blah, blah, all that nonsense. So I'm going to tell you, this has a good sound. And while that horn may be short, it is long. Okay, this is not a small horn, not really. It's pretty big inside that case. And playing these records, this sounds as loud to me as the Victor IX that was playing in this very spot. Well, several different Victor IXs playing in this very spot. Now that horn is certainly larger than one found on the Victrola VI, and probably the Victrola VIII also. I mean, if you kind of squished it in a little bit and made it higher, it's going to come to almost the same height. But they just made it long and narrow. It has a good sound. You heard it playing now. The volume sounds good. This is a large building I'm in, and I have no trouble hearing it clear across the shop when I'm playing it. You know, given the price tag on this machine, Victor would not have marketed this if they thought there were issues with the sound. What I think happens is people find one of these machines and the motor hasn't been serviced, the reproducer has petrified gaskets in it, and they're using worn out records and it sounds like crap. Maybe they're not changing the needle, who knows what. But when they're in proper working order, everything's serviced like it should be, I find no deficiencies in this machine's sound. Its volume, I'm using a loud tone needle, you know, but other than that, it sounds good to me. So I don't know what the complaints are all about. But then on the other hand, these machines are so rare, most collectors will never even run into one to test it, let alone, you know, be able to make comparisons or anything like that. It's been looked at by at least one other collector who specializes in VTLAs and early Victrolas and horn machines. And he theorized there are maybe 50 to 100 of these left in the world in existence. That's his theory. I don't know. But searching online, I've only been able to find pictures of a small handful of them, and most of them appear to be the later style with all the fancy wood, you know, trim they put on it. So he could be right. I really don't know. You know, there's no listing anywhere that I know of that would tell you how many are left out of the 4,700. There's, I don't know, 500 left or something like that, whatever. But it could be, because you got to figure that this machine would have been obsolete by the mid-teens, late teens, and possibly replaced. Wealthy people could afford to do that. They were the ones who bought these machines. So they could always update to the latest model, and it could be that they simply, you know, got rid of these and got a big credenza or something eventually, who knows what. So there may not be that many left, but it is an impressive machine, I will give it that. And it has the first version of Victor Victrola, Victor Talking Machine Company, Camden, New Jersey. Label and the old water decal on there is still in very nice shape. Whole machine is, really. You'll see things like this. I have to put that screw back in there, but I have to chase the threads first. Swelling has caused it to gap a little bit there. That's typical from, you know, life in a tropical climate. A little bit here and there. I got to replace the felt over here, but that's nothing. But solid mahogany. I don't even know if that's veneer. I'm thinking it should be veneer. It probably is, but maybe not. Certainly not on the lid. The very top I know is. You know, mahogany was too expensive to use solid board, but the older machines kind of tend to. Look how nicely those doors close. 111 years old, probably played tens of thousands of records. I gotta tell you something, you know, while the motor had its issues, all due to whoever had been playing with it, the gears were not worn. You know, everything still looked good in there. There were nothing really flopping around any more than is normal. You know, things that are supposed to flop around, but everything looked nice, really nice in there, which is something you see with these high quality type machines. And Victor in general is just so well engineered that everything, even this many years later, is still in nice shape. Oh, look at that. I didn't even see that. Somebody named Bill once owned this copy of Whispering. Bill in the 1920s. And look at how that bullet brake still holds. There's still at least half power left in this spring, and that bullet brake still holds it. No problem. And I did not replace the leather in that. Just the way it is. But there you go. There's a look at the motor test for, that is 2255, isn't it? I can't really see back there. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. No, it's too dark, I think. But I believe it's 2255. 1909 Victrola the 12th. And that's just a look at it. I still have a few more things to do, like, you know, that and that screw. But other than that, I'm impressed.